Council chambers. If you now please join me in rising for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Granquist.
Here.
Langy.
Here.
Merrill.
Here.
Weeblehouse.
Here.
Murin.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Clausen. File.
Here.
Okay, with that, I will look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion second. If no discussion, roll call, please.
Granquist.
Yes.
Langy.
Yes.
Merrill.
Yes.
Weeblehouse.
Yes.
Murin.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Would then look for a motion to approve the full agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion second. If no discussion, roll call, please.
Granquist.
Yes.
Langy.
Yes.
Merrill.
Yes.
Weeblehouse.
Yes.
Murin.
Yes.
Jackson. File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Okay, that takes us to item number 23 on the council agenda under public hearings and related action. We'll open this public hearing to consider repealing section 27-284 of the city code, which regulates communications, microwave, and cellular towers. And to kick off discussion of this public hearing, we'll hear from Val Grimes, our city planner. Val.
Thank you. This repeal ordinance is based on the communication tower ordinance that you all passed on all three readings last time. That is going to be our new ordinance. We would like this to be repealed. This is what has been on the books for many years, and this way we would not have double ordinances and conflicts if this were to stay in place with the new ordinance that was put in place last time.
Okay, thank you, Val. Any questions? This is a public hearing, so anyone wishing to make comment can do so now. Hearing no one, I will call for a planning commission report, please.
The Norfolk Planning Commission held a public hearing on August 18th, 2020 to consider repealing section 27-284 of the official city code, which regulates communications, microwave, and cellular towers. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the amendment with a 9-0 vote.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll close the hearing and move to item number 24. We look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5681, repealing section 27-284 of the city code, which regulates communications, microwave, and cellular towers.
Your Honor, I would offer for consideration ordinance number 5681.
Motion and second. Any discussion on this, council? A lot riding here on the vote on the new ordinance. Leap of faith we're taking right here. But if no discussion, would ask for a short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to repeal section 27-284 of the official city code, which regulates communications, microwave, and cellular towers, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, with that, roll call, please.
Granquist.
Yes.
Langy.
Yes.
Merrill.
Yes.
Weeblehouse.
Yes.
Murin.
Yes.
Jackson. File. All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5681 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5681 on second and third reading.
Second?
Okay, motion and second to suspend the rules and approve on second and third readings. If no further discussion, roll call, please.
Granquist.
Yes.
Langy.
Yes.
Merrill.
Yes.
Weeblehouse.
Yes.
Murin.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5681 carries on second and third.
Okay, that takes us to item number 25. I will open this public hearing to discuss the 2020 to 2030 capital improvement plan, which includes the 2020 to 2025 1- and 6-year plan for street improvements. And to kick off this discussion, we'll hear from Lyle Lett, the city's risk manager.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Lyle Lutt, I'm Risk and Operations Guy for the City of Norfolk. We're going to talk about the CIP briefly, and Stephen will have some conversation about some street projects as well.
Lyle, do we have your mic on? Maybe
Yes,
just
it
needs to
is.
be a little closer.
Let's
Okay,
Move it in here a little closer. How's that sound?
that's good.
All right. In your packets there, think on page 63 or so, you'll start to see the spreadsheet that is the CIP. You can start glancing at that. I'm going to talk about this briefly, and as we conclude that conversation, if you have questions, we can sure jump into those. That's a 10-year outlook. This is a 10-year outlook into the larger purchases of the city, going in excess of generally $50,000 or more. A projection that feeds into the budget every year and gets kicked in so that the way to pay for it, the planning for it's already taken care of. The good thing about the CIP is if, for instance, a payloader is on there and it's doing really well, we have an incredible maintenance shop guys, and that if we can extend the life of that, we can bump that purchase further out in the future. Likewise, if we happen to have a lemon of some sort, it can be bumped forward. So it's a flexible deal. This year, there'll be some changes. You'll see towards the end of that is some reference to the chaff. And that's what Stephen's going to talk about here in a short while. The team that constitutes this is Steve Ramus, Public Works Director, John Cahill, the Staff Engineer, Shane Widener, the Public Safety Director, myself, Randy Gates, Finance Officer, and Sheila Rios, the Senior Accountant. Sheila's kind of the mind behind the spreadsheet there, so when changes are made, she's the one that makes it jive. You saw this in July, around July 28th. Very similar. It's changed very briefly, very slightly, and I'll bring those changes to your attention here. 4 of them, minor in nature. Under admin, line 2, the window replacement was moved from 2021 back 1 year to 21-22. The second change, second and third, we'll talk about those, is under sewer. Line 6 and line 7, those were both moved from 2021 to 2022. And the fourth and final change was in solid waste. Line 1, a price amount depicted in there of $65,000 to match what you approved in the budget. With that general overview, is there anything in there CIP related? We'll talk about the streets in just a second, but as far as equipment or anything that you'd like to talk about. If it's a general conversation, I can probably have it. Luckily, all the department heads and division heads are here if we want to get into the minutia of something.
Any questions? Lyle?
Those are just the 4 changes?
That is correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Thank you,
I'll fire up the screens here so you can see what we're talking about. And I think Stephen's going to talk about some stuff on our website, on the city website. Do you
Thanks,
see that
Lyle.
on your monitors?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Lyle. What Lyle has brought up here is a little bit of a discussion on our 1 and 6 year street plan. We're required to submit a 1 and 6 year street plan every year to the Department of Transportation as a subject to our funding that we get from them. We call it CHAF. It's actually called City Highway Allocation Funding. So we submit for this every year. We have, between the DOT and our budgeting process, we have moved this a little bit. We used to go through this kind of starting in January and wrap this up early March and submit this. The DOT has changed that. They're allowing us to put this, to do this process kind of in conjunction with our annual budgeting process. And so now we are showing our 1 and 6 year budget, street budget, as a function of our capital improvement plan. And what you have before you here, this is, we're looking at our city website. This is on the engineering page of our city engineering site. This is the proposed 1 and 6 year street plan for 21 and 21 through 27. What I want to point out here is our budget. In the past, this is the dollars that we receive for our street program. And this is, you know, I want to point out there's no city tax involved in this. This is state gas tax, which is about 79%, or approximately 2.69 million in 2019, 2.66 million is what we expect through 2020, our fiscal year 2020. And then budgeting for the next fiscal year, we are estimating about 2.28 or 2.29 million, roughly a 15% decrease. That is primarily as a function of COVID and the reduced gas tax sales. You know, people are staying home. You don't have as much commuter traffic going on, especially in our bigger cities. And so we are seeing a reduction in that gas tax. So about 15% reduced budget for this next year. Just to go through the other pieces, we got state gas tax, we have motor vehicle sales fees, that's about 6% of what we get. Surface transportation program is roughly 14%, and bridge funds about 1%, about $40,000, $38,000 to $40,000 there in bridge funds. The bridge funds, we put back into bridge maintenance projects, some of the projects that have been going on here for the past year. The surface transportation program, those are some federal buyout dollars that we plug in so that it's a program through the state. We get those dollars kind of without the federal requirements attached to them. So it allows us it's easier to spend those dollars for us and accomplish what we need to do on our streets. Again, I'd point out that this is on our website, also on our Facebook page is a presentation, about a 5-minute presentation where I run through all of this. So I'd encourage the public, if they have an opportunity to see that. We'll go on now to the 1- and 6-year plan tab, and I'll just touch base on kind of what's going on there. One of the things I want to point out is the background here, the street map. This is a function of the street scan project that we did, modifying or changing over our street maintenance program. The green would indicate streets that are in generally pretty good shape, fairly new, or just not very much stress showing up. The yellow segments are starting to show stress, and the orange and red areas are areas where there's quite a bit of stress going on in our street system. To focus over on the tab there and talk a little bit about the projects that are in our 1- and 6-year program. The 1 year, 2020, 2021, we have miscellaneous street maintenance work by contract. That is $750,000 for this next year. We also have the Alley and 3rd Street and River Point Square project. Some of that is starting now, and you know, we'll see that finishing up, and the majority of the cost of that occurring into the next fiscal year. Miscellaneous residential paving districts, that's something that just is carried over year to year in our budgets. Generally, those are where we have paving districts inside of residential development projects, and we pay for the intersections and some minor costs associated with those. Probably the bigger project in there is the Benjamin Avenue, 4-lane to 5-lane from 13th Street to 1st Street. We're in final design stages of that project, and we'll see that project now start to go through the utility relocation costs, some minor costs for additional right-of-way acquisition. Probably a large chunk over the next few months will be some of the NPPD relocation of the overhead so that we can accommodate that 5th lane. The 6-year plan itself, so the 2022, again, the miscellaneous street maintenance work by contract, that does cut back here for a couple years. We've been trying to get that up to that 750 mark, but that does float a little bit. So $550,000 going forward for a couple years. Bridge maintenance, First and North Fork Bridge. That project right now is replacement of the bridge there over the North Fork. That's about 50% design. That's part of the overall Johnson's Park project, and the permitting that is in process with the Corps of Engineers right now. Again, widening Benjamin Avenue from 4-lane to 5-lane. Some of that will be occurring over a 2-year fiscal year. So that's showing up in the 1- and 6-year program. Beyond that, you don't see a lot of street work going on in there. As we look at 2020, 22, 23, again, the miscellaneous street work by contract. We'll see some micro sealing and armor coating throughout the city. At that point, we're 5 years from when we did our last micro seal and armor coat project. Those occur on about a 5-year frequency, so we'll see that there. 23, 24, pretty much just the miscellaneous street maintenance work by contract for that year. 24, 25, we anticipate some more bridge maintenance improvements. Those are not identified specifically at this time. I would guess that's going to be some work focused on the Norfolk Avenue over the levee. Again, that shows up in the 25, 26 time frame. What we don't know about that project is once we take the asphalt milling off the deck, we don't know whether the deck is going to be a repair or a full replace. So that project cost will vary anywhere from about $650 to $1.9 million. And we just won't know that until we peel that deck off. So that'll be some of the work going on there in 24, 25. What I want to move over to here, we'll look quickly at the street repair by contract tab. This is some of the work that we'll be focusing on this next year for that $750,000. Bel Air, a lot of these areas here is where we have a lot of the alka-silica reactivity going on. The street is starting to delaminate, curbs are delaminating. But the Bel Air area, right in front of the Bel Air School, Woodcrest, Homewood, and then 34th, 34th Street out by right at Highway 275 intersection. So those are some of the areas that $750,000 is going to be spent. The other place we're spending that is in pedestrian safety improvements, crosswalks, that type stuff. And then I'd point out the additional needs tab. Over here in the upper left-hand corner of that, you're going to see some additional needs that are listed. And again, that kind of comes back to that street maintenance program. This is certainly not all-encompassing. We have listed here some just citywide pedestrian safety improvements, traffic signal system upgrades. I'd like to point out that our traffic signal systems and our control systems date back 40 to 50 years in many cases. And you just think about the technology and advances in technology that have occurred over that period of time. There's a lot of opportunity there to install new control systems in our signals and make those much safer for pedestrians and traveling public. Increase in residential street maintenance. Street maintenance occurs, there's kind of 3 pieces to it. There's you've got newer streets and you want to maintain those so that they last a lot longer. And then you've got the streets that are in failure mode that you just have to address. And then you've got that third chunk that's in the middle where they're not quite failing and they're not really new. And that's where we really have a lot of need. We've got the dollars to kind of do the repair what's failing. We've got dollars there to do the maintenance. The dollars to take care of that center third is where we really seem to struggle. And that's what some of these are. Benjamin Avenue and Victory Road intersection. As we grow and as that northeast section of the community grows, we're going to see continued stress there. We got a lot of issues going north on Victory Road on that section. Michigan Avenue, 13th Street to 7th Street. That is in our 10-year CIP, but it does not show up in our 1- and 6-year project. But that is a project that we are looking at. It's probably in that year 7, 8, 9 right now. I think there's an opportunity to advance that, which we'll be exploring this year, and then bringing that back next year for some more conversation. 8th Street, Omaha to Michigan Avenue. Again, that's a project both of those, the Michigan Avenue project and that 8th Street project, those have been in our 1 and 6 year program for, I'm gonna say 6 to 10 years. They just keep getting bumped up and bumped up due to other needs. Michigan Avenue, Vicky Lane to 13th Street, so that's kind of out there around the mall area. We're seeing a lot of distress in that. That's something that if we, we need to find a way to get in there and preserve that so that we don't lose it. Center Drive, same situation. Norfolk Avenue, Cottonwood to the levee. We did that nice repair job. It's actually in this picture here that got us from First Street out to Cottonwood. And now we need to look at and really consider what we're going to be doing from Cottonwood out to the levee and across the levee structure. First Street, Elm to Benjamin. That's one of the few asphalt segments that we have here in the community that's going north, north of Benjamin Avenue. I'm sorry. This is First Street, Elm to Benjamin Avenue. So this is an area where we have a lot of the alkali silica reactivity going on, specifically in that outside northbound lane, outside southbound lane. I think that's an area that we can focus on some repairs on those outside lanes and probably focus a mill and overlay on that, much like we did here back in spring of 2018 on several segments. Jackson Avenue, these are some potential gap paving projects that people have contacted us on, is possibly seeing that last block or so there on Jackson Avenue closed from 4th to 5th. Washington Avenue, down there around 1st to 4th. We tend to get a lot of complaints about that, needing to get out there with motor graders and take care of the bumps and stuff that develop. Monroe Avenue, 1st to Chestnut, and First Avenue, Benjamin to the levee. So those are just some additional needs. Where those come from is our public comment period. This year we had a public open house August 18th and invited the public to come in. It was a well-attended meeting. I guess in my term here, it was probably the best attended in person, and I think through our Facebook and some other media. I know we had a newspaper article. Mayor and I were on a couple radio interviews, and so I think we're starting to get the word out there about what our process is, and we're starting to get some really good feedback.
Okay.
And that, Mayor and Council, is the CIP. The Planning Commission got a whack at it here a couple weeks ago, and now it's in your lap.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Very good. Any questions, Council? I'll just make a few comments. Streets are a very common topic. Condition of the streets, common topic throughout the community for good reason. But I've been pleased to see progress in terms of designating resources to street maintenance and reforms made in how we do street construction and how we go about repair and maintenance. So I think at this time it's important to, as a reminder, to talk about some of those things, reforms and design standards for new street construction, and getting at how we improve drainage and subgrade requirements to help our streets last longer, so we don't over the long term have to incur so much maintenance costs. Secondly, a comprehensive analysis of what our street system is right now, and that's what Steve referred to as street scan, having data, having information, knowing via that data where areas of most critical need are in the community. So that was very helpful to get done. And then thirdly, as Steve mentioned, the public input process is very important in this as well. And we've tried pretty aggressively to be more proactive in communications about streets and seeking input. And as Steve mentioned, the 1 and 6 year street plan open house that was held now a few weeks ago was, I think, the most well-attended meeting as far as infrastructure goes that I've been to during my time of involvement with the city. And that's a good thing. We want people to be part of the process and be comfortable in communicating with us about ideas and thoughts and concerns. And all of those things, those reforms have led to as I said, a designated focus in designating more resources to street maintenance work year to year. Some of those projects that Steve talked about. And I think, Steve, you said the other day at the meeting, we've had, through increases in chaff in the last few years and some shifting of resources within our own budgeting process, a significant increase in the street maintenance year-to-year budget. Can you give us a number on that? I think you said somewhere to 30 to 40%. Is that accurate?
Yeah, through probably the 2010 to 2016, 17, we tried to have a budget that were in that 500,000 to 600,000 range. I would say we were averaging about 400,000. The goal here is over the next 6 years to get that up to that 750 to 850 range and really maintain it at that level. Yeah, putting those smaller dollar values into maintenance and making those streets last longer is part of the solution that we need to see.
Okay.
So yes,
Thank you. Any questions regarding the plan for Steve? We are in a public hearing, so anyone wishing to make comment can do so now. Okay, hearing no one, I will close the hearing and move to item number 26. Look for a motion to consider resolution number 2020-43, adopting the 2020 to 2030 capital improvement program, which includes the 2020 to 2025 1- and 6-year street improvements plan.
Your Honor, I'd offer for consideration Resolution 2020-43.
Second, Your Honor.
Motion second. Any further discussion on this, council, before we vote? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Grandquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Liebelhouse,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Kyle.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, resolution 2020-43 is adopted.
Okay, that takes us to item number 27. We'll open this public hearing to comply with the provisions of NRS 18-1755 to acquire an easement interest in property located generally in the area of 1611 South Victory Road, Norfolk, Nebraska. And to kick off public hearing discussion on this, I think we're hearing from Steve Ramus, city engineer.
Mayor and council, this easement is part of the Omaha Lift Station sewer project. That project was designed and is on the shelf for construction as we see large demand or large flow increases in our industrial customers to the northeast. After we had that project designed, we did not move forward with easements at that time. We have been moving forward with those. This is one of the last easements that we need to put in place. What's going on here is this property owner also has some property over on North 25th Street in the Skyline Lake area. And so what we're doing here is we've agreed to a land swap. We're going to swap some property that we own, and in conjunction, then they're going to give us the easement for that property. So that's what's going on here.
Okay, thank you, Steve. This is a public hearing, so anyone wishing to make comment can do so now. Okay, hearing no one, I'll close the hearing and move to item number 28. Would entertain a motion to consider approval of an agreement with Carol E. Kretzinger, a married person, Ronald L. Kretzinger and Carol E. Kretzinger, husband and wife, and Eldon G. Mundorf and Willis A. Mundorf, husband and wife, where the city will transfer to Carol E. Kretzinger title to property generally located directly to the east of and adjacent to 715 North 25th Street in consideration for the granting of temporary and permanent easements for a sewer line on a portion of the property at 1611 South Victory Road. with the date of closing to be on or before November 30th, 2020.
I'll make the motion, Your Honor.
Second that, Your Honor.
Motion and second. Any discussion, any further discussion on this agreement, council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Grandquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Liebelhouse,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, item 29. Look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5682, authorizing the transfer of ownership of city property located directly to the east of and adjacent to 715 North 25th Street to Carol E. Kretzinger in return for the transfer of temporary and permanent easements for a sewer line on a portion of the property at 1611 South Victory Road.
I'll make a motion for consideration of ordinance number 5682.
Second?
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to authorize the transfer of city property, to provide the terms of transfer and authorize the mayor to execute and deliver a quitclaim deed to the property, to provide for a remonstrance to said transfer as provided by law, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, roll call, please.
Grandquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Liebelhouse,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5682 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'd move we suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5682 on second and third reading.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to suspend the rules and approve on second and third readings. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Grandquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Liebelhouse,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5682 carries on second and third.
Okay, it takes us to item number 30. We'll open this public hearing to review the City of Norfolk's fiscal year 2020 to 2021 municipal budget. And to present the budget will be Andy Colvin, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. If you give me just 1 minute to get this presentation, hopefully it all works. Let's see. All right. Success? Okay. Good. First try. All right, well, thank you very much, Council. I'll kind of try to zip through this. I'll be happy to take any questions, so feel free to stop me at any time. I was joking with the staff that I tried to shorten this presentation as much as I could. But when I tried looking for things to take out, I don't know that I'm really doing the amount of hard work that it takes to put into a budget, both on part of city staff and our several department heads who are here tonight, but also the work of elected officials and the mayor and city council as we put this together. So I just want to thank you all and thank everyone in this room for all their hard work that they put into putting this together. And certainly at the helm of that would be Sheila Rios and Randy Gates, our diligent and dedicated finance team who have to go through many, many, many hours of back and forth, meetings with department heads, staff, council meetings to go through this. So without their hard work, certainly I think we could all agree we wouldn't be where we are today. So I'll start out my presentation as I do most years, go through the city council goals. These are the goals that the mayor and city council have identified as priorities that we then work from as we put together a budget as a staff. Cash reserve, community engagement, public works, street expansion and maintenance, parks and recreation, property maintenance, economic development, and public safety. And as I go through here, I'm going to begin with maybe a year in review, looking back over the last fiscal year, so we can kind of look at where we've been, and then we'll move into where we're headed. So again, it was really hard to summarize, so I'll try to go through as much as I can. Emergency cash reserve. This has been a goal of the city council for several years. Last year, it was achieved, that 16%. Now, with the pandemic that hit, we are projecting at this time that we are going to have to utilize that emergency cash reserve. We don't know how much right now. That's going to depend on a lot of factors. But it's important to note that we did achieve that goal. And of course, if we have to utilize that, the goal will then be to bring it back to what it was. So a few things are going to impact that. If sales tax receipts remain strong, or if we get some other revenue sources or CARES Act funding, which right now the amount of that, if any, is still unknown. I believe we're going to get something from that as a city, but I cannot sit here and tell you today what exactly that will be. That's going to depend on a number of factors. So depending on how all those things play out, it may be reduced or eliminated with regard to the amount we have to utilize out of our reserves. But thankfully, through the council's hard work, we have achieved that goal. So that's why we have those funds, is so we can utilize it in times of need.
Andy, that
Sure,
that
go ahead.
16% is generally a recommended level for local governing
Yep, I
bodies,
believe
right?
that
That's
is-
that's how we arrive at that 16%.
Yes, the Governmental Finance Accounting.
Governmental Finance Officers
Thank you.
Association recommends a minimum of 16%.
So that's where that number comes from. Community engagement and public relations. I think many have seen a complete redesign of our city website. That has been something that's been discussed here for the last number of years, and we finally did get that done. It's still a work in progress, and we're always seeking to try to customize that even more. We've received very, very good feedback on our website. And also an enhanced social media presence, which I think most of us will notice here in the last number of months. We've seen that a lot stronger. We're doing interviews with staff. Mayor Moaning has been on there. We've been trying to highlight a lot of the projects and hard work that our divisions do on a daily basis. And I think that that interaction with the public through social media is going to continue, and we'll keep strengthening that and finding new ways to reach out and engage the public. Public Works, flood control has been one that's been on our radar screen for a number of years, knowing that we're going to have it recertified. In the meantime, we did have a flood that came through in 2019, so that led to some needed repairs. So some of those items have intersected with the work of the Corps of Engineers, which we have an agreement with. Work has been bid and a contract has been completed and work is in progress. As you'll see right now out at the levee, there's been a lot of work being done. With respect to the recertification, we've done the phase 1 data collection and the master plan, and it is now time to begin phase 2. Solid waste and transfer station, we have contracted with SCS, a consulting engineer for architecture and engineering for the work and the improvements to take place at our transfer station. Along with that, something that residents would appreciate is we have implemented free yard and waste drop-off for residents. So any brush, grass, just go ahead and go out there during the normal operating hours, and you can take that out there for free and bypass the scale and just go right out to the brush area, which we've had very good use of that. The WPC master plan has been completed. Water distribution and supply, we've begun master planning for future water needs. I think that's important for a community to always keep that in mind as to where we're growing. And of course, we're going to need to have water. So it's important to make sure that we're planning for that as we look down the road. Public transit is another one that has been just kind of slowly rising to the surface in all the work that's been done to restructure transit. Although that is not a direct city division or a department, it has received a lot of staff support along with the staff at Norfolk Transit to try to identify more partners, state and regional partners, to execute a stronger public transit service here in Norfolk and also in our region as well. Working with the Ponca Tribe and other organizations with the state to try to find out what more can we do and provide those services to those that need it here. Street expansion and maintenance. Brosh, as we can all see, from 1st to 5th is currently under construction, is moving forward on schedule. I don't know what the rain we have today will do to that, if we can still stay on schedule. Hopefully we can. Georgia Avenue was a long-time gap paving project that has been completed from 1st to 3rd. West Rosh repair and reconstruction, those repairs have been completed. 25th Street and Highway 275, as you just turn off of Highway 275 towards Walmart, you'll notice some approach has been reconstructed there that was becoming in very bad disrepair. Bridge maintenance work on North 1st Street, East Benjamin, and East Elm has been moving along very, very well. East Elm has been one in particular that we've received very positive feedback on. Continue to work on concrete panel replacements. You'll see our street crews out tearing out with their jackhammers and skid loaders bad sections of concrete and replacing those all over the place. So it's exciting to see those things happen. We know they're kind of a minor inconvenience, but very necessary because they are replacing those for a reason in very strategic locations. As Steve had mentioned in his 1 and 6 year, we have completed a comprehensive scan of city streets to identify and prioritize those critical needs, which we have just discussed with the 1 and 6 year capital street plan. And then also engineering and design of Benjamin Avenue. We had public input sessions and a lot of comment on that this year. So that is continuing to move forward into final engineering and design and other discussions as to the logistics of how that project is going to be completed. Parks and Recreation, we have continued the purchase of land to complete the field expansions at Tahazuka Park. We've completed a construction of the Norfolk Skate Park, which recently opened and has been wildly successful and popular. Construction of a restroom at Embrace Park has been completed. We did achieve, which was not a difficult goal to achieve, was planting 2,020 trees in 2020, which is primarily funded through grants and donations. And then we've continued design and engineering work for Johnson's Park and the River Restoration Project, which this week is in the public input phase for the permit that we need from the Corps of Engineers. So that is exciting to see that moving forward. Property maintenance, we've continued enforcement of the Property Maintenance Code. Approximately 12 structures were removed through public or private demolitions this last year, and we have continued to identify and inspect dilapidated properties. Economic development, the biggest item that we've had this year, of course, is the Bradford Business Park and our partnership with the Greater Norfolk Economic Development Foundation, who acquired the land and completed master planning and final construction engineering for phases 1 and 2, which we discussed earlier during the CDA agenda. Construction is set to begin this fall at any time, and we hope to have some new business announcements coming out here in the next few weeks. Extended infrastructure to Northeast Industrial Area, that work has been completed. The elevated storage tank that we see coming up out by Nucor Steel is set to be completed this fall. Painting likely will not take place until spring. We are almost done with a retail analysis for Madison County that includes the city of Norfolk, so we expect a final report and a marketing plan to us, which is part of their deliverables that they have to bring to us, so we expect that here this fall. We've continued business and industrial recruitment and expansion. We've completed 6 RFP requests that we received from the Nebraska Department of Economic Development, and we have responded to those. Facilitated public involvement in housing and business developments, and we have continued to recruit developers to the Norfolk area, and of course partnering with the Growing Together initiative and developing a small business revolving loan fund with the USDA grant and LB 840 funds, which we have discussed here on several occasions with agenda items with the council. And then, of course, recently we've begun construction of River Point Square to provide a public gathering space downtown. Finally, public safety. We've conducted a public space needs analysis for the police station to identify the growth needs for that building. We've also assembled an advisory committee for regional dispatch services for Norfolk and Madison County. And we've completed construction of a new tower for public safety and public works communications, which we can see off of 25th Street, right across the street from the existing water tower. And then we have also completed, along with that, conversion to 800 megahertz digital radio system. So, I can take a breath now for all the projects we've had. If there's any questions or anything else we want to highlight, I can certainly do so, or we can get right into talking some charts.
Andy, I do have one question. Since you were on a roll, I didn't stop you right at the beginning. So, but you're doing great. In the CARES Act, if I understand this right, none of that CARES Act money is available for tax shortfall to cities? I think that's the way that is.
I believe most of what we can stand to get is for public safety.
Is for
Is that
public
correct,
safety,
Randy?
okay. My question was whether, so if you can't use it for for shortfall, can you use it to replace emergency funds?
The governor has his $1.25 billion pot of money that can be distributed to the local entities. And federal government early on said you could get that for presumptive public safety expenditures, but the state wasn't going to allow that until they saw how other expenditures were coming in. I heard real recently they've said you can submit for public safety, presumptive public safety payroll expenses. So you can presume that your public safety personnel were working on COVID-related stuff 100%. And the state said from March, April, and May, we've got a September 15th deadline to submit our presumptive public safety costs to them, which we did today. That's a big number. I have no idea how much of that we'll actually get back. But so directly we can't get any money to replace lost revenue. But with that presumptive publics, I think that was the whole idea of that presumptive public safety payroll, was that cities and counties could use that to offset some revenue they have lost. Cause
I wasn't sure how they defined emergency in that. You know, we define it as emergency funds, but how the feds look at that, I wasn't sure. So, but thank you, Randy. Yeah.
So we'll get some money from that, I'm sure. How much, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Okay. Well, a picture of our fiscal year 2020-2021 general fund revenue. As you can see, year to year, it doesn't change. Sales tax and our NPPD lease and other revenue accounts for over 60% of our total revenue for the general fund. Property tax, just under 17%. Then you have some other charges and other income right there for a total revenue projected of $22,459,511.
Andy,
Break those down. Sure.
That other revenue, I mean, that's a good chunk. What makes up that?
Yeah, that's a permits, grants that we receive. It's got a lot of, I don't know, Randy, if you want
Are
to.
you asking about the other taxes line? Or?
Well, the 23%.
Right there, the yellow.
5%, the yellow.
Okay.
That's a lot of money.
Say that again, you're looking at.
It's everything, so if you take the sales tax.
What consists
NPPD
of the other
lease,
revenue?
What consists of it?
And so it's all those things you see here, non-revenue. So you're wanting to know what non-revenue receipts, intergovernmental revenues, other taxes?
Your pie chart shows 23.75%.
Yes.
A large
Yep.
percentage.
So that would be charges for services, would be one component of that. Other taxes, so you could have occupation tax, you know, you name the other miscellaneous tax.
Okay.
Licenses and permits, building permits, those kinds of things, grants, other interest income and other receipts.
Okay, thank you.
So that is combined with the other items on the more detailed list there off to the right.
All right, thanks.
Yep. Sales tax, you can see a bump, of course, for the years where there was a special half-cent approved for the construction of the library, which did go off. But as you can see, over the course of time, We have had very good growth of sales tax over the years, which is something we hope to continue, even through the pandemic. April sales were our worst month that we were down, but it slowly came back out the following month, and then we were back up for our receipts through June and July sales. So if those continue, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. We are right now, where was that number? I have it written down. We are up just under 6% year over year, year to date, from last year to this year still for sales tax. So that's very promising.
So I
Go
think
ahead.
that's a notable number, Andy. So even with the pandemic, we're up today 6% more than we were last year in sales tax receipts.
Very strong sales tax at the beginning of the year, this calendar year, and really good growth we've had year over year has really helped take care of the dip that we had through the pandemic that was thankfully short-lived.
And that number is July 31st or June 31st?
This goes through July sales.
July sales, okay.
Yep.
Great.
We won't know August, so we know August sales tax receipts, which is through June sales.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
I was
correct.
off a month.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, all right,
So this month, we're gonna find out how July was.
right, okay. All right, well, still, that,
Yep.
as the mayor noted,
Yeah,
that's very good.
very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Early months of this year were double-digit increases, and then, of course, the slump in March, April. But now I think the last month we were up nearly 15% for the month. So
And, our other taxes, Keno revenue is still hanging in there very strong. Occupation tax and hotel tax obviously is still down. But surprisingly, the picture is not as dire as maybe as we were thinking it was going to be back last spring when we were putting our revenue projections together, which is good. Here's just a comparison for a Nebraska Public Power lease. I want to note there's a jump there in 18 to 19, and that was because NPPD moved from quarterly to monthly payments, which resulted in a higher than usual lease payment reflected on the sheet. Assessed valuation, this is just one of those nice things to know as to where we're at as an entire city. So we're up just over 11% from previous, so just over a $1.8 billion valuation total for the city of Norfolk. I think at least a significant portion of that, we've seen a lot of growth. And I think we'll hopefully see that continue to grow as we see some of these housing developments come online and other commercial developments and growth that we've seen. Just a side note for property tax overview to show the average homeowner in Norfolk where their tax dollars are spent. And on a $100,000 home and 2019 levy rates, you're paying the city of Norfolk $255.51 of property taxes for the services that you receive out of the general fund for police, fire, parks, streets. So that's always a chart that it's good to show people where their dollars are going. General fund expenditures. You can see this pie chart has not changed from year to year. Primarily, this is, as you can see, police and fire and administration take up most of that, along with with street maintenance and parks and recreation. Any questions on this chart? Enterprise fund expenditures, you can see the gray there. So half of all enterprise funds go towards capital expenditures, with operations and maintenance taking up most of it, as it's quite spendy to take care of our water and sewer plants, but our crew does a fantastic job of doing so. And I think that, as you'll see here, we're going to cite some of the investments later on that we're making into this next fiscal year, where those capital expenditures will be going. So looking ahead, we focus on infrastructure, quality of life, and quality services. Street maintenance and construction. We are going to be having $750,000 of contract work for street repairs. That is up from $350,000 the previous year. And of course, you'll see Benjamin Avenue reconstruction here. That is not the total price tag of the street, I don't believe, but it is a portion that we hope and anticipate will be at least starting in the next fiscal year. Flood control, levee repairs, 1.9 million, and then the recertification of 615,000 to complete those projects. Infrastructure and new developments. As the community is growing, it's important that we extend infrastructure to those areas. And that's just over $1.7 million we anticipate. And the sewer system, we are doing a FEMA hazard mitigation project, which you can get a little bit more detail on that from our staff that are here if you have more questions, but essentially that will protect it from future flooding as we go forward. So that's a good investment to make to protect our plant. Grid improvements, retrievable diffusers. I don't really know what any of these things are, but they sound cool, and I like talking about them. Benjamin Avenue, the sewer system portion of that is $75,000. And then there at the end, we do have some sewer replacements that we do as part of the normal course of identifying those areas that are falling into disrepair. So just over $1 million will be going towards that. For the water system, Benjamin Avenue, again, will have a component that we anticipate next year for about $100,000 to replace some water. And then water main south to Sherwood Road, we anticipate to be the city's portion of about $400,000 for that project to extend water. Solid waste, we are looking at a truck maintenance facility and a scale house construction equipment related costs, just under $3 million. And of course, a recycling building that we have budgeted amount for $250,000 for next year. Parks, Recreation, and Trail Development, Landscape Master Plan. We have just under $750,000, which that fund is getting some good numbers right now so we can complete some beautification projects. Park expansion of $387,000. That is for additional land, property that might come up to expand our park system throughout the community. Johnson's Park improvements of just over $1.1 million. And then, of course, North Fork River restoration for just under $1 million that we, hopefully, we can, once we get our permit from the Corps, we can now then get real serious about getting some work done and some engineering completed on that project next year. And then trail projects of just over $840,000 is what we have planned. So I went through that very quick. I'd be happy to go back and revisit anything that you'd have questions on or want us to drill deeper into. We do have our division heads are here, so we can get into as much detail as you would like. But overall, it's a very good budget year. It started out as a roller coaster. This process starts in about March or so. And of course, you know, at that time, we didn't really know what was going to happen. And then that kept changing from month to month. And finally, things started to stabilize for us with revenue and projections. So we don't anticipate it to be as bad as we maybe have thought it was going to be this spring. But then again, we're going into a year not really knowing what that future is going to bring. But I would say all in all, I'm very confident that the city of Norfolk is financially stable. We're in a very, very good financial position. We've made investments in key areas throughout the community. And the construction and activity and growth that we're seeing, I'm very confident will carry us through difficult times.
Thank you, Andy. Questions?
Andy, one of the one of the prominent things as shown with the capital improvements is the Benjamin Avenue situation that's going to really start taking hold of here. And I think Steve mentioned that we were close on 100% or close on design documents that way. And it's more, that's probably one of the most major questions that I get from constituents that either have businesses along through there or travel that a lot is, when might we see, I'm assuming when we get that, it'll go up on our website so that people will be able to look at it and see what to expect,
Yeah, and I think that's a very appropriate question. So we moved just past the 50% design in July. So I know, I've been getting phone calls as well. People kind of want to know where we are. We approved a contract to move, I think it was mid-June, for right-of-way acquisition purposes for the appraisals. And so that has started with the 50% plans being approved. They kind of started to fix the right-of-way needs, and then they'll be reaching out to all of the landowners along there to have that conversation with them about what the design is, whether or not there's going to be a need from that particular landowner. We can make those 50% plans available in some format. They're kind of hard to read, but we could make them available.
Well,
At least some kind of a layout so people could see, where we ended up. I know a lot of people still think there's going to be raised median from one end to the other, and we moved away from that. So I can find something to put up there that displays what that final design concept is.
I mean, that would help. That exactly a lot of the questions I get as I frequent some of those businesses across there is, well, what about that raised median that was out there or is out there? And I try and clarify it, but I said, the city will be coming with something sooner or later. So
Yeah.
Andy, I just wanted to say to all the department heads and to you that after having gone through several of these budget sessions over the last 9 or 10 years, I thought staff really stepped up, and given the difficulties we have this year with the pandemic and what have you, really stepped up and provided reasonable numbers to the council. So they're to be commended, and you as well, I believe. The other thing I wanted to mention is our new website. I tickled to death with how that thing wound up. It's a bit intuitive, and it's a heck of a lot prettier to look at, and it's very, very easy to use. There's just tons of information on it, and I know we're still adding stuff on there as we go forward, but if the citizens out there haven't had a chance to check it out, they really should. It's they did a very nice job on it, so thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Councilman. There's a lot of hard work that was put into putting that together. So
Yeah.
Our IT team did a fantastic job. I am going to note one item since the council had your work sessions. There was a subcommittee meeting where they wanted, the council members wanted to forward a recommendation to add a police officer into the budget, which is reflected on the one before you tonight. So I just want to make note of that dollar amount as just over $82,000, which includes everything to outfit a police officer added to the force. Part of the discussion and reasoning behind that the council identified, and feel free, those that were there to offer on that, it really comes down to recruitment and the difficulties and challenges around recruiting police officers. It's easier, more efficient, and just all around better to do 2 at a time. And so having that flexibility to hire those numbers to get to where we need to be. So the council did one better and added a police officer to our force. So I don't know if there's any those that were there want to note that, but I wanted to note that this budget does include that addition for you, since that was a change since the council's budget sessions.
Any other questions? I know I was mostly curious about the retrievable diffusers, so I'll just have to wait for the engineers to ask about that. But seriously, I did want to note that I'm glad you did take the time, Andy, to run through all of that. The budget process is one of the most important things we do as a city, and it all starts with a vision that's set by the people, really, of Norfolk through their elected officials and executed by staff. The budget really acts as a playbook and a roadmap in a lot of ways. And as you very well laid out, there's a lot of things going on in our city right now. And to be where we are in the wake of a pandemic, which was also on the heels of a 500-year flood last year, is pretty remarkable. And I think it's a testament to the citizens of this community and their confidence and hope for a bright future for Norfolk. So specifically regarding this budget, I think it's a budget that's focused on continued growth. And it's a budget that's focused on infrastructure development and improvement. And it's a budget that's focused on continuing to enhance our quality of life. And I think as we see the fruits of planned development in the last few years, in new housing and new commercial, new business growth, that growth is helping fuel more economic activity. And that economic activity is helping us as a city expand and improve upon public services. And again, I think that that growth is another signal and a reflection of the confidence that Norfolkans have in the direction that we're going and the good work that you're all doing. So thank you. I thank the staff for the dedicated focus that they've put on putting together these plans and then carrying through with them in execution. So with that, if there are no other questions for Andy, we are still in a public hearing here, so we have the opportunity for any public comment from anyone wishing to make comment right now. Okay, I don't hear anyone. I think that's it for this public hearing anyway. I will close the hearing on the municipal budget and move to item number 31 and open the public hearing to review the City of Norfolk's fiscal year 2020 to 2021 proprietary budget for water, sewer, solid waste, and stormwater. And to kick off discussion on this, Randy Gates.
Basically, Andy talked about the enterprise funds and kind of a broad overview as he was going through the regular municipal budget. As you can see in the enterprise funds section of the budget, which is on page enterprise funds are on pages 167 is where it starts. You can see that the enterprise funds, which comprise our water, sewer, solid waste, and stormwater funds, have a beginning fund balance of $7.7 million, and we end up with a ending fund balance of $7.3 million. Probably the thing that would be most of interest to people is the rate increases, and if I remember correctly, we've got a 1.5% increase in our solid waste, no increase in our stormwater, 2% in sewer, and 5% water. But Andy covered pretty well what were some of the bigger projects were. I don't know if Steve wants to add anything to some of the projects that we've got budgeted in the enterprise funds. I think the mayor probably wants you to talk about those diffusers and the caught his attention.
Really, I was just kidding about that.
I thought everybody wanted to know what grit was, so I could describe grit. No, if there's any specific questions, the 3.2 million that, Andy mentioned out at WPC, we were contacted and asked if we would be interested in putting in for a hazard mitigation grant at WPC. What that is we estimate about 3.2 million to build some sort of a levee wall around our wastewater treatment facility. At both the prior two flood events now, that facility has been very close to being compromised. And that would be an extreme cost if we lost that facility in a flood event and had to completely reconstruct that, or even a portion of that. Just the cost of that plant being down and what we would have to do in the short term to provide that service would be an astronomical cost. So 3.2 million, we are in the process. We have submitted for that grant and are in the process of answering questions and stuff as they review that. Our cost, I think, would be, I think it's either a 75-25, we'd have to match 25%, or an 80-20, I don't recall, but I think it's...
We hear on whether we're awarded the grant or not?
I would expect to hear in the next 6 months as to whether we're successful there.
Okay. Any other questions? Again, it is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to make comment can do so now. Hearing no one, I will close the hearing and move to item 32. And look for a motion to consider resolution number 2020-44, approving the additional 1% increase in restricted fund authority allowed upon the affirmative vote of at least 75% of the council.
I'd offer for consideration resolution 2020-44.
Second.
Motion second. And Randy, once again, can you explain what this means to us?
Yes, we get and this will have no impact on our current year budget other than to increase our unrestricted funds carry forward. But state law says we've got a lid on our revenues that we can expend. State law says with a supermajority vote, in this case it'd be 6 council members, we can increase that an additional 1%. So I think that gets our carryover up to, I think it's close to $1.3 million, if I remember right. So there's about $120,000 increase with this additional 1%. And that gives us flexibility going forward in the future. It has no impact at all on this budget. But for instance, if we decide to get out of the alarm in the future, right now that's an exception to the lid because it's under an interlocal agreement, and our insurance tab's large. So if that would happen, we would need flexibility to have a significant carryover. And there's just some goofy things in the lid law. For instance, when we accumulate money in the CHAF fund, CHAF is one of the restricted funds. If you spend that on capital improvements as defined in the lid law, that becomes exempt from your lid and levy limits. But if you're trying to accumulate money to do Benjamin Avenue, for instance, then it's, when you're accumulating that money, it is not an exception. And so we have wide swings in our unrestricted fund balance because of some, I don't think the state probably really intended that, the legislature, when they passed that lead law, but there's things like that are in there that the bigger that number is, the better it is for us. It gives us flexibility going forward. So to make a short story long, I recommend you approve that.
Very good. Any other? I dare to ask any other questions for Randy? Okay. If none, roll call, please.
Granquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Wiebelhaus,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Resolution 2020-44 is adopted.
Okay, item 33, would look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5683, approving the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 appropriations, approving the fiscal year 20 to 2021 proprietary budget, and approving the strategic plan.
Your Honor, I'd move consideration of ordinance 5683.
Second.
Motion and second, and any technical discussion on this from staff before we move consideration?
Just to say that we need to pass this on 3 readings because we got to get the budget off to the state by September 20th, and we won't have a council meeting before then. So,
No pressure. All right. Okay. Any final comments or discussion, council? Okay. Hearing none, short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, adopting the budget statement to be termed the annual appropriation bill, appropriating sums for necessary expenses and liabilities, adopting the proprietary budget statement, adopting the strategic plan, providing for severability, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and take effect, and providing for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay. With that, roll call, please.
Granquist?
Yes.
Langy?
Yes.
Merrill?
Yes.
Weeblehouse?
Yes.
Murin?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
File?
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5683 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'd move we suspend the rules and pass ordinance 5683 on second and third.
Second that, Your Honor.
Motion and second to suspend the rules and approve on second and third readings. If no further discussion, roll call, please.
Granquist?
Yes.
Langy?
Yes.
Merrill?
Yes.
Weeblehouse?
Yes.
Murin?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
File?
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5683 carries on second and third.
Okay, item 34. Open this public hearing to receive comments regarding changing the tax request for the 2020 to 2021 fiscal year from the amounts for the 2019 to 2020 fiscal year. And Randy, again, can you kick off this discussion, please?
yes, this is a requirement of state statutes. Whenever you have a fund that's asking for a different amount of property tax than it did in the prior year, you got to have a public hearing on that and explain what you're doing and why you're doing it. Vehicle parking district is an easy one. They level their 35% maximum levy rate every year. And as their assessed value goes up and down, their actual property tax asking goes up and down. And theirs decreased $450 this year because they had a slight decrease in their assessed valuation. The city, on the other hand, had that big 11.06% increase in assessed value you saw on the chart Andy had up there. We've been keeping our levy rate the same, and our levy rate does stay the same this year, a little over 25 cents. By keeping that levy rate the same, and as the assessed valuation goes up, letting our property tax asking go up. We've got a lot of needs in the city, and we need money to pay for those things. So this year, that 11.06% increase, which we put into the general fund, results in about $460,000 increase in asking in the general fund. We also had the Economic Development Fund property tax asking expire this year. That was voted on 10 years ago. For 10 years, we would levy $400,000 of property tax for the LB 840 Economic Development Fund. That went away. $225,000 of that is going into the city's debt service fund to pay for debt service on all those flood control expenditures Andy talked about earlier, both repairs of the flood control and the FEMA recertification of the levee. That's a pretty expensive project, both of those. And then that left $175,000, and the council in the budget work sessions voted that we should use that to accelerate some of our street projects. So what we did was put that $175,000 into the general fund. So you got 460 I talked about earlier, plus $175,000 gives you about a $635,000 or $636,000 increase in the general fund. And we reduced the amount by $175,000 that we transfer from CHAF every year to the general fund to pay for street maintenance cost. So that went down, leaving that extra $175,000 in the CHAF fund as part of the CHAF budget that Steve talked about earlier that's going for streets. So that's what happened with our property tax this year. And this is a public hearing, so be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Randy. In a nutshell, no levy increase, but valuation increases, which impacts the asking.
Our levy rate stays the same.
Yeah. Is a public hearing, so anyone wishing to make comment can do so now. Hearing no one, I will close the hearing and move to item 35. Looking for a motion to consider resolution number 2020-45, approving the property tax requests for fiscal year 2020 to 2021 in amounts different than fiscal year 2019 to 2020.
I'll offer for consideration Resolution 2020-45.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion on this or questions, council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Grandquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Weeblehouse,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson, File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Resolution 2020-45 is adopted.
Item 36 would look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5684, approving the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 classification and pay plan.
Your Honor, I'd move for consideration of ordinance number 5684.
Motion and second. And Randy, once again, can you give us some background on this, please?
This is an additional budget item. This actually approves a pay plan as we have it in the budget you approved earlier. And so that's all this does is approve our classification and pay plan, which includes a 1% cost of living adjustment this year.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Any questions or discussion on that, council? Hearing none, short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, classifying the employees of the city, fixing the ranges of compensation of such employees, providing a pay range, repealing ordinance number 5630, providing for publication in pamphlet form, and when this ordinance shall take effect.
Okay, with that, roll call, please.
Grandquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Weeblehouse,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson, File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5684 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'd move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5684 on second and third reading.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to suspend the rules and approve on second and third readings. If no discussion, roll call, please.
Grandquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill, Weeblehouse,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson, File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5684 carries on second and third.
Okay, that moves us, believe it or not, to our regular agenda. We're just getting started. Item 37 would look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5678, enacting Chapter 13, Article 15 of the City Code to address small wireless facilities within city right-of-way. As a note, ordinance number 5678 was tabled at the August 17th City Council meeting. So I think I need a motion to remove from the table first. We'll look for a motion to
Your Honor,
remove from the table.
I'd make that motion to remove it from the table.
Second.
Motion and second to remove the ordinance from the table. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Grandquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Weeblehouse,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Okay. Would now look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5678.
I'll offer for consideration ordinance number 5678.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Okay, looks like, Steve, you've been appointed to give us some background on this, please.
Mayor and Council, at the last meeting, this ordinance was presented, and as mentioned, it was tabled to allow staff time to have some conversation in a council subcommittee and just bring that public infrastructure subcommittee up to speed with some of the more recent changes that had occurred. One of the things that we did want to take advantage of is, I'll point that out here, and it has to do with the make-ready clause, which is in section 13-232. We went in and added some language there. And so to look at that, what I'd need to do is, you were all provided an updated ordinance, and I would need a motion to substitute the updated ordinance and replace the ordinance that was tabled.
At this time?
I believe that would need to occur at this time for further discussion on that. Is that correct, Danny? Yes.
I would make a motion for the substitution of the newer ordinance language.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Grandquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes?
Weeblehouse.
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
So going back then to section 13-232, the make-ready work, one of the things that we were a little bit concerned about was as we put this out, we've had a reasonable amount of contact by small cell providers to start installation. In fact, we have 11 sites already on our table for review. And one of the things here was under the make-ready work, subsection B, we added the sentence at the very bottom of subsection B, the city shall have the option to require the applicant to order and install any replacement poles when necessary. One of the things we have to do is basically provide a make-ready site for the small cell carriers to come in and install their hardware. And at least as we kind of start this process of getting small cell installed, there's going to be quite a heavy burden on staff to make that happen. And so this allows us to put that burden back over on the small cell carrier to go ahead and order that pole, get that pole here and install that. I think that makes sense just from a cost of acquisition for some of that stuff. You know, for us to go through that process and go through the acquisition purchase requirements that we would have, get quotes or go out for public bids, it could delay that process. So I think this really works to the small cell carrier's advantage where they can provide that and get that here. Just to kind of walk you through a little bit how I see this happening, and just in terms of the carriers that we're working with right now, is they'll contact us. One of the carriers we've been working with for a year ahead of the actual application to get sites located, meet on site, take a look at them, make sure they make sense, engage with NPPD. When they're comfortable, when we're all comfortable, then the application itself rolls in and starts what we call a shot clock. We have 90 days from when the application hits the desk to either approve or disapprove of that installation. If there is some material missing within that initial application, that 90-day shot clock stops until the new information is submitted to us, and then that 90-day shot clock continues from there. And so I see an initial contact from a carrier. I see us working with that carrier up until the point they're comfortable submitting an application. Once the application gets to our desk, it's really it comes down to kind of that make-ready piece and how much work is going to be required to get that site ready. From what I can see, in most cases, they're going to go on existing poles. I've looked at 21 sites in the community right now. Of those 21 sites, all but one site had an existing pole, and it happened to be a site where it made sense to put a street light. And so the light that goes in there would be a small cell, a light structure capable of carrying a small cell facility. So in general, I think they're all going to go, mostly are going to go on existing street lights. From what I can tell, again, in working with them, most of those street lights structurally won't carry the small cell, so even though it's gonna go on an existing street light location, it will be, most likely be a new pole. One of the things we're working through right now with NPPD is, since it's gonna be a different pole and not one of their standard poles, will they still classify that as what we call an M1 or an NPPD pole, or will it become an M2 pole, which we then own and have to, if it gets hit, it's our responsibility to get that pole replaced. I'm sure that there will be some of that. I don't think we're going to be able to get NPPD to be responsible for all of them. And so we'll probably carry a small stock at our street shop. I'm guessing 2 poles. Hopefully we can work with multiple carriers and get multiple carriers to use the same pole, so we don't have 2, 3, 4 different types of poles and have to have, you know, inventory for each one of those. So those are some of the pieces that we're still kind of working on. I think as we go through the applications with these first 2 carriers, we'll figure out where all that ends up. And like I say, we're still in conversation with NPPD on whether those will be M1 or M2 poles. The fee for a new installation or installing on an existing street light is $100 per site. To install at a new site without any existing pole is $250, and that's part of that application fee. This did take us about 2 years to get to this point. A lot of conversation. We looked at a lot of, you know, different ordinances, different models of ordinances. I think we came to a pretty good place. I don't know, Danny was heavily involved in getting us here. I would say she became a small cell expert when it comes to the legislation that's kind of driving all of this from the federal level to the state level and down here to the ordinance. So I appreciate the work she put into this.
Steve, can you explain to the citizens how these might look once they're installed? Are they somewhat hidden? I guess they can't be hidden from view. They're on the poles, but
They're on the poles. There's the potential for a couple general different styles. I don't know that we're going to get the infrastructure where it's all inside the pole. There will be a camouflaged antenna at the top of the pole that'll look like a larger extension of the pole, a little bit larger in diameter at the very top. That's where the antennas themselves will be housed. There will be a small piece of structure probably mounted to the outside of the pole, maybe 3 feet below that, below the top of the pole. I would say the ones I've seen are about Xbox size, maybe 2 Xboxes, depending on the type of technology that's up there.
okay. And are all of the small cell wireless that's going to be installed on city property, or are there some to be, or that could possibly be installed on private property?
It is possible that they could install on private property. This ordinance is specific to public property, and it is specific to city public property. So anything on Highway 81 or on Highway 275 within the state right-of-way, the state has a similar ordinance or agreement that the small cell carrier has to comply with.
And can we as a city require just one type of pole?
That's what a lot of this last 24 months has encompassed, is what we can and can't do for aesthetic purposes. Fairly restricted on what we can and can't do. One of the more recent court decisions opened that up a little bit. I think we're still exploring a little bit what that means. But I would say we're limited on how we can force specific aesthetics on them.
Okay, but irregardless, if we had to inventory 2 or 3 different types of poles, we're really not inventorying a lot of product.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I think that's where we're gonna be. Hopefully, you know, if we got 4 carriers, they're not all on their own pole. Hopefully some are co-located, and hopefully we can get them all to agree to a couple, 2, 3 different pole styles.
All right. Thank you.
So on the liability end of it, we own the pole and they're on the pole, so
Right, so it's either good,
because it happened recently, big lightning strike takes, you know, took the street light out. I know MPPD came back and put that up. Big lightning strike takes the small cell carrier out. Who takes care of that?
we take care of the pole and the carrier takes care of his technology.
Okay.
And we do, within this agreement, if, in extreme cases, we have the authority to turn off the technology if we need to restore that pole. The public safety takes precedence.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to enact Chapter 13, Article 14 of the Official City Code to address small wireless facilities within city right-of-way, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Roll call.
Granquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Wiebelhaus,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5678 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5678 on second and third reading as it appears extensive research and that has occurred over the last 24 months.
Second.
That.
Motion and second to suspend the rules and approve on second and third readings. If no discussion, roll call, please.
Granquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Wiebelhaus,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5678 carries on second and third.
Okay, it takes us to item 38. I'd look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5679, amending section 2-5 of the city code to include fees related to small wireless facilities located on city poles and in the city's right-of-way, to include a fee for an eligible facility permit related to wireless communications facilities, and to update the annual fee for parking stall rental. Ordinance number 5679 was tabled at the August 17th, 2020 City Council meeting. So I would first look for a motion to remove from the table.
So move.
Second.
Motion second to remove from the table. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Granquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Wiebelhaus,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Okay, would then entertain a motion to consider ordinance number 5679.
I'd offer ordinance number 5679.
Second.
Motion and second. And Danny, can you give us some background on this, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 5679 it's a fee adjustment to our city code, and it involves 3 different areas. First is the small cell that we just talked about. It was just passed previously, ordinance number 5678. Second is 2 fee updates that pertain to the wireless telecommunications ordinance that was passed on all 3 readings at the last council meeting. And the third update is pertaining to the annual fee for the parking stall rental. So if you look at the ordinance itself, Stephen said in the previous ordinance, in the previous conversation, he talked about the 2 fees that were for the small cells. The first is the $100 fee, the application fee. That's for co-location on an existing city pole, and that's $100 per facility. The second one is $250, and that's for when we are talking about a new pole or the replacement of an existing pole. The third one, still on the small cell front, is the use of the city's right-of-way on an annual basis, and both the FCC order as well as our state statute, they say you can either do an annual right-of-way fee, or you can do or you can have the occupation tax. And because we do already have that levied under section 13-80A of our city code, that would be what the fee is in that regard. And the final one for small cells it's a $20 annual fee, and that is for small wireless facilities that are co-locating on city poles in the city's right-of-way. So it's essentially a $20 annual rent. And if we move on to the second aspect of this code update, that would be the two fees that are pertaining to application fees for the wireless telecommunications ordinance that we passed on all 3 readings at the last meeting. I'm trying to pull that up, so excuse me one moment, please. So that would be within our zoning. So there's 2 separate permits that I'm not sure if you recall, but from the last meeting when we passed this ordinance, there's 2 separate permits, and one would be the conditional use permit, and the other one would be an eligible facility permit. And essentially, that's more of a streamlined version of a permit for something when we're looking at probably most likely just the replacement of an existing facility on a macro site, a tower. So both of those are $300. That's just for consistency purposes, because our conditional use permit fee is already $300. And as far as the final piece of this ordinance, that is the parking stall rental increase, and it was previously $65. And if the council chooses to pass this ordinance, it will increase to an $80 annual fee. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I do got one question. Let me find it here, what page it was on. Page 372, where we're talking about the permits and fees. And on the small wireless fee of $100, it has a not to exceed of $500 for up to 5 facilities at the same application. But the $250 one does not have a not to exceed number on that. Is that on purpose? And
It is on purpose, and it is a little bit confusing. So as part of both the FCC order and our statute involving the small wireless facilities, the reason that it refers to the $500 fee or up to 5 facilities on the same application is because that it kind of considers the fact that a lot of these wireless providers are going to do what we call batching. So they're going to have on pre-existing poles, they're going to want to do maybe 5 or 10 at a time. And so this it's basically saying up to $500, which means that on one application you can only have 5 because of the shot clocks. So I think Stephen kind of alluded to that. We have in some instances a 60-day shot clock, and in some a 90. So if we get an application with 20 different facilities, that obviously makes it difficult to fall within that 90-day timeline. So that's why it's anticipated you can only give us one application with 5 at a time for batching. But so that it is a little bit confusing, but I hope that makes sense for you, Councilman. It's just so that we only have one application with 5 at a time.
so but the other one where the $250 fee, it's only possible to have one on that application at a time.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Because
that
that's
is,
an independent pole.
right. That's going to be a new pole, a replacement of a pole. So the previous one is it's a little bit more streamlined. The $100 fee that kind of anticipates a more streamlined process. And when you're looking at replacing with a new pole, there's a few more requirements that go into the application for a new pole as opposed to putting something on an existing pole.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? realize a lot of work went into this ordinance and the previous one. So again, I appreciate staff's focus on that. Danny, thank you. Any other discussion on this before we move forward? If not, short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend Section 2-5 of the official city code to include fees related to small wireless facilities located on city poles and in the city's right-of-way, to include a fee for an eligible facility permit related to wireless communications facilities, to update the annual fee for parking stall rental, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, with that, roll call, please.
Granquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Weeblehouse,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson, File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5679 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'd move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance 5679 on second and third reading.
Second that, Your Honor.
Motion and second to suspend the rules and approve on second and third readings. If no discussion, roll call, please.
Granquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Weeblehouse,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson, File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5679 carries on second and third.
Okay, item 39, would entertain a motion to consider ordinance number 5685, amending section 24-164 of the city code to restrict parking on the east side of East Knowles Street from the beginning of the curve on the southeast corner where East Knowles Street and East Sycamore Avenue meet, north to where East Knowles Street becomes East Sycamore Avenue, and on the south side of East Sycamore Avenue from 40 feet east of the end of the curve on the southeast corner of where East Sycamore Avenue and East Knowles Street meet, west to where East Sycamore Avenue becomes East Knowles Street. We got that? I would
Mayor
look for that
Council.
motion.
I'll move for consideration of ordinance number 5685.
Motion second. And to make sense of all that for us, Chief Don Miller. Norfolk
Mayor and
Police
council, you know, we worked in that description trying to shorten it, but that was what we ended up with.
You didn't do a great job.
I would encourage you to look at a picture that's in your packets picture's worth 1,000 words. And you'll see the intersection that we're referring to with a couple of red flags, just marking where we're proposing stop signs. This should look familiar. Several years ago, we looked at doing this. We've had several complaints about parking on both sides of the street. This is in the East Knowles addition. This particular road is a thoroughfare going into a continually expanding neighborhood. So as time goes on, there's more and more traffic going through that area. Several years ago, we looked at this and we suggested the same no parking restrictions. Some residents in the neighborhood resisted and wanted to manage it on their own. And over time, we've continued to have problems and parking issues in that area. So we're again coming to you with a suggestion to put this no parking area in. My staff did talk to the residents that are on and around that curve, and some of them have changed ownership over the time. But of the 8 that were there, 7 of them were in support of the restriction, recognizing that this is a problem. One of them, I'll say, took a neutral stance. There was a lengthy discussion, but I will say that they took a neutral stance to it. So unless there's somebody here to speak against it today, I don't know that there's going to be anyone that's against it, as we've already talked to those residences, as well as several people passing through the area. When my staff was there talking, there were people would stop and express their concerns for this parking area. We chose the inside edge because as you're approaching the curve, that allows you to see cars coming. If we did it on the outside edge, parked cars would still block that view. So it's one corner that has been a problem, and I'm confident that no parking restriction on the inside edge will resolve the majority of the problems that we've had there and the complaints.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Doesn't look to be. Thank you, Chief.
All right,
Appreciate
thank you.
it. Okay. If no discussion on this, short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend Section 24-164 of the official city code to prohibit parking around the curve beginning on the east side of East Knoll Street to where it becomes the south side of East Sycamore Avenue, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, roll call, please.
Grandquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Weeblehouse,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5685 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, hearing no opposition to this, I move that we suspend the rules and move forward on second and third reading, ordinance number 5685.
Second?
A motion second to suspend the rules and approve on second and third readings. If no further discussion, roll call, please.
Grandquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Weeblehouse,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5685 carries on second and third.
Okay, last but not least, item 40 would look for a motion to consider approval of an engineering consultant services contract with Manelli Wagner and Associates Incorporated for the paving district number 518, Walters East Knolls 13th edition, project for a lump sum fee of $8,365.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
And Steve Ramus, could you give us some background on this, please?
Mayor and council, earlier this summer, we created a paving district for Walters East Knolls 13th edition, and also approved the plating and subdivision agreement for that edition. This is an agreement with McNally Wagner for the construction, engineering, and inspection services related to the paving district. These fees and service are in line with the requirements of what we had spelled out in the subdivision agreement for that subdivision. We went ahead and did this lump sum because that work is substantially complete at this time. They were moving forward at lightning speed to get that work done. And so rather than have to track hours, it just made sense to go ahead and do this one lump sum. And we did identify the fee as a function of the subdivision agreement as well.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any questions?
So Steve, what you're saying is we're gonna recover this dollar amount
Good
from
question.
the
So
project?
this is really a pass-through, because this is a paving district. This fee gets passed through to the developer and is an assessed cost.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Grandquist,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Weeblehouse,
Yes.
Murin,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
File.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Your Honor,
Yes,
was that the last item on the agenda?
that was.
Would I have time to mention to the public that today is the mayor's birthday?
I think you just did, so
Right.
Well,
Well,
you sure didn't have to, but.
Happy birthday, Mayor.
Thank you, thank you. And with that, that concludes this meeting of the Norfolk City Council. We are adjourned.